In this video, we are going to crochet this gorgeous cozy beanie. Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi and I am delighted to have you join me today. So to make this lovely crochet hat, you are going to need any worsted weight yarn. So I just used a selection from my stash, and you will also need a 5.5mm crochet hook. So I have listed the yarn requirements for all of the different sizes in the description below, and you'll also find those in the written crochet pattern. So that pattern is written for 7 sizes from newborn up to adult large. So this is a really great design for making hats for everybody in your family. In this video, I am going to be making the baby size hat, but no matter what size you are making, the steps are going to be exactly the same, and the only differences will be in the stitch and the row counts. So you are going to need the pattern to hand to be able to follow along for the size that you are making. And that pattern is free on my website nedandmimi.com, and you can find the link below. So I absolutely love the texture of this hat, and as you can see here, I have made a variety of different sizes. So I think it looks equally lovely in a solid colour like we have here, and also in stripes. So for this one, I have used 3 different colours and just changed at the end of every round. So before you get out your yarn and hook, if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. So let's just have a quick look at how these hats are constructed. So they are worked from the bottom up. We'll start with the ribbing, which is worked in a long strip, and I really love the knit look effect of this ribbing, even though it is 100% crochet. So then we'll seam the ribbing to form a tube, and we'll start working the body of our hat. So most of it is just even rounds where there's no increasing or decreasing. And then at the top, we'll work some decreased rounds. So the stitch pattern may be a new one for you, but you're going to get lots of practice, and it's actually very, very easy once you get the hang of it. So without further ado, let us get started. Okay, so let's get started on our ribbing. So the first thing we want to do is leave a nice long tail, because we're going to use that to seam up the ribbing later. And then we'll just start with the slip knot, and for the size that I am making, I am going to chain 7. Okay, so depending on the size that you're making, you might have a longer chain than me. That's absolutely fine. So for the first row, we're going to skip the first chain from the hook and go straight into the second chain, and we're going to work our first row of yarn over slip stitches. So to do that, we'll yarn over, insert our hook into that second chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now I'm just going to continue to draw my hook through both of those loops like so. So let's do that again. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain and pull up a loop, and then continue to draw the hook through the loops. So this stitch does take a little bit of practice, and you'll notice that as I pull the hook through, I'm rotating it away from me like so, and that just makes the movement a little bit easier. So we'll continue working all along the chain, and in this first row I should have a total of 6 stitches, so 1 less than the starting chain. Okay, so there is my first row done. So let's go straight into row 2 now. So we will chain 1 and turn, and that does not count as a stitch. And for row 2, we're going to work into the back loop only. So this loop back here. So we'll yarn over again, insert our hook into the back loop of that first stitch and pull up a loop, and then again continue to pull all the way through. So I'll just keep repeating that yarn over slip stitch through the back loop all the way along the row. Until I get to the last stitch. And for the last stitch only, I'm going to go through both loops, and this just gives a neater edge to our work. So sometimes this stitch can be a little bit tricky, so just make sure that you get both loops there. Pull up a loop and then just complete the yarn over slip stitch as normal. So that's our second row done. So you won't see the stitch pattern form for a few more rows yet, but you can kind of see already that we have this knit look row here. So all I need to do now is keep repeating that row 2 for as long as I need to. So for the size that I'm making, I need to work a total of 54 rows. So again, check the pattern and see how many rows you need to work. So let's just do one more. We'll chain 1 and turn, does not count as a stitch, yarn over, insert our hook through the back loop and complete our yarn over slip stitch as normal. And then I'll work all the way along the row until I get to the final stitch. And then for the last stitch, we'll go through both loops. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, so that's row 3 done. So I will go ahead now and I'm going to complete my ribbing and then I will see you back here for the next section. Okay, so here is my ribbing complete. So now all I need to do is just fold it in half and seam the edges together. So before I do that, I'm just going to tie a very loose knot here. I haven't fastened off and I don't want that to unravel. And I am going to use the mattress stitch to seam together. So you have a few other options. You can also do a row of whip stitches, so they would be worked on the wrong side. You could even do a row of slip stitches. And I'm going to use the mattress stitch, which is worked on the right side. So I do have a longer video showing a little bit more detail on all of these methods if you would like to check them out. So I've just threaded my yarn needle here and I'm just going to do one little whip stitch on the edge here just to bring these two edges together. So there we go. And now for my mattress stitch, I'm just going to work over and back along the two edges in a zigzag motion and then pull gently just to close up that seam. So I'm going to start on the side closest to me. So I'll just go from top to bottom and then bottom to top through those first two stitches and then just repeat that on the other side. So going from top to bottom and then bottom to top. Like so. And let's repeat that once more. So we're always inserting our needle into the exit point there from the previous stitch. So in we go there. And the same on the opposite side. So let's just do one more on each side. And then I'm just going to pull very gently just to bring those two edges together. So that's nice and neat, isn't it? So just a few more stitches to go. And just pull again. And now I'm just going to finish off, I think, by doing one extra whip stitch there just to bring the edges nice and neatly together. Okay, so there we go, that is our seam. I think that is looking nice and neat. So I'm just going to leave this tail and I'll just put it to the inside and we can weave that in later. So let's go back to our loop here. So because I worked the mattress stitch, I'm already looking at the right side. So if you worked on the wrong side, you will need to flip your ribbing inside out before starting the next section. So the first round of the body of the hat is just going to be worked into the edge of the ribbing here. So normally I would chain one at the start of the row. However, I found with this stitch pattern that omitting the chain one actually gives a neater seam. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to work a round of single crochet and half double crochet 2 together. So I know it sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but I think when you see it, the stitch name will make a lot of sense, and it's actually quite easy. So working into the edge of the ribbing is a bit of an art rather than a science. So just do your best with it, and you are going to want to end up with the same number of stitches as ribbing rows. So for me, I'm going to want to end up with 54 stitches in this row. So let's get started. So I'm not going to chain one, I'm just going to go straight into the edge of that first row, yarn over and pull up a loop. So that's my single crochet portion. Then I'll yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook into the edge of the next row, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now I have 4 loops on the hook, and I'll just yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And then the next step is to just chain one. And we just continue repeating that all the way around. So we'll do our single crochet portion, inserting the hook into the next side of the next ribbing and pull up a loop, then yarn over and go into the edge of the next row. 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through and chain one. So you see, it's actually quite easy. So let's just continue working that same stitch pattern all the way around the edge. Okay, so here I am at the end of row 1. So you'll just want to do a quick count of your stitches just to make sure that you have the corresponding number for your ribbing rows. And for this pattern, I am counting the chain 1 as a stitch just because I find it easier. So you're going to have 1 of the single crochet, half double crochet 2 togethers, and a chain 1. So they're a pair when you are counting. So now at the end of the row, I'm just going to do a slip stitch to join to my first stitch. So let me just show you where that is. So that is the very first stitch there, because there's no starting chain or anything. We're going right into that first stitch, and don't forget the chain 1 at the end of the row of the round as well. So in we go there for our slip stitch, and that is our first round done. So the second round is going to be the exact same stitch pattern. So the rest of the hat, we're going to be working this pattern of the single crochet, half double crochet 2 together, and the chain 1. So we're not going to work a starting chain here either. We're just going to go straight into the first stitch. So we'll insert our hook into that same point where we joined with the slip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we're going to yarn over, and we need to go into the chain 1 space. So let me actually just pause there a second and show you where that is. So it can be tempting to go in to this next space here, but if you look very, very closely, this is actually the next stitch, not the chain 1 space. So the chain 1 is kind of hiding in there a little bit. So if we look a little bit more closely at the space in between these 2 stitches, let's just zoom in a little bit. You will see that back here we have this little bar, and where you want to go for the next leg of the stitch is to the right of that bar. So just in there. So not into the top of the next stitch. You want to go to the right of that bar, because that's actually the chain 1 space. So there is our chain 1 there. So let us continue on with that. So I'll just insert my hook again. So remember, no chain 1. We just work the first single crochet portion, then yarn over, insert our hook to the right of that little bar, so in the chain 1 space, and pull up a loop, and then just complete the stitch as normal and chain 1, and so on all the way around. So let's do another one. So we'll insert our hook into the top of the next stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over, and then inserting our hook to the right of that little vertical bar and complete the stitch. So it might just take a few of these stitches just to ensure that you're inserting your hook into the right place, like so. So you can see the vertical bar there again, but after a few of them. it'll be second nature. So I'm just going to continue on working all the way around now until I get back to the start of the round. Alrighty, so I am back to the start again, and I'm just going to use another slip stitch to join to that first stitch. So if you like, it's helpful actually to put a stitch marker in this first stitch, and that might make finishing the round a little bit easier. Okay, so there are our first 2 rounds done. So now what I need to do is just repeat that round 2 for an even number of rounds, and once I have done those, then I'll start doing some shaping to cinch in the top of the hat. So I'm going to go ahead and work the number of rounds that I need to for my size. So just check the pattern, see how many rounds you need to work, and then I will see you back here for the shaping at the crown. Okay, so here we are. I have worked 10 rounds in total here for the body of my hat, and you can see the seam here is nice and neat and not very conspicuous at all. So we're ready now to get on to the shaping rounds. We're just going to decrease the circumference of the hat here to make it easier to cinch in at the top. Now this beanie or hat is reasonably snug fitting, so if you do want a more slouchy fit, feel free to work some extra rounds here before you start shaping at the top, and that's going to give more height to your hat. So our first decrease round, we are going to take basically every 6 stitches. So for counting in pairs here, we have 2, 4, 6. So we're going to take each of these 6 and turn them into 5. So every 6 stitches we're going to be decreasing, and I'll show you how to do that now. So we'll begin as normal. So working our single crochet and half double crochet 2 together, and a chain 1. We'll work another stitch as normal, and a chain 1. So that's 4, 2, 4, and then let's do our next one as normal. But here we are not going to chain 1, so that is the first decrease. So all I need to do now is just repeat those 5 stitches the whole way around the body of the hat. So let's go ahead. So without chaining 1, I find it easiest to just count in 5. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decrease by not chaining 1, and then just continue on. So I will fly along now, just repeating those 5 stitches until I get back to the start. Okay, so here I am at the end of the round. So if everything has gone according to plan, you should have finished on a 5 repeat here. So we're not going to chain 1, we're just going to slip stitch to join. And that's the first decrease round done. So for the second decrease round, we're going to take each 5 stitch repeat and decrease that down to 4. So let's get straight into it now. So we're going to start with our usual single crochet, half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, work the next stitch as normal, and a chain 1. And now this was the 5th stitch of the repeat from the previous round, so we didn't do the chain 1 after this stitch. So we're actually going to skip over that one and then begin working into the next stitch. So that's the decrease done there. So you can pull a little bit more tightly there just to close up any small gap, and work your single crochet, half double crochet 2 together as normal, and then chain 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, skip a stitch, and then continue in the next. So for this round, it's easier to count in 4s. So every 4 stitches, you're going to be skipping 1. Skip, and there we go. And again, just repeat that all the way around. Okay, so here we are back to the start of the round again, and the last stitch here is our 5th from the repeat of the previous round, so we're going to skip that and then just slip stitch into that first stitch. Okay, so we can see that very slowly the top of our hat is starting to shape inwards. Now, to keep the decreases nice and neat and as inconspicuous as possible, the next round is actually an even round, so exactly as we did down here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then after that we just have 3 more decrease rounds left. So the decrease pattern is the exact same no matter what size you are making. The only difference is going to be the number of stitches in each round. So I will just fly along now and work an even round, and then see you back here to work the remaining decreases. Okay, so that's the even round done. So let us keep going now with our last number of decrease rounds. So if you remember the previous decrease, we went from 5 to 4. So now we're going to go from 4 to 3. And this row is going to be very similar to the first decrease round, except we're just working less stitches in between each decrease. So away we go. So we'll begin as normal. So there's 1, 2, 3. And now for this first decrease, we're just going to skip our chain 1. So exactly as we did there when we were doing the 5 stitch repeat. And we'll just count in 3s all the way around. So 1, 2, 3. Don't chain 1, and then move on. And that's it. So we'll just keep going with that all the way back to the start of the round. All right, here we are, back to the start. We're not going to chain 1, and then we'll just slip stitch to join. All right, so 2 more decrease rounds left. You can probably guess what the next one is. So now we need to go from 3 to 2. So away we go. So we begin as normal. Chain 1, and we'll skip the next stitch and then continue our stitch pattern in the next. So very similar to that second decrease round, except this time we're skipping every 2 stitches. So skip this one and do our single crochet, half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, skip the next one, and so on. So the rounds are getting shorter and shorter, and we're almost there. Alright, so back to the start of the round. Remember, we need to skip the last stitch, and then we'll just slip stitch to join. Okay, very, very close. So the last round is very easy. We are just going to omit all of the chain 1s. So we'll work our single crochet, half double crochet 2 together as normal, but then just no chain 1 in between, and just repeat that the whole way around. And here we are back to the start. So we'll just do our slip stitch join as normal. Now you can leave a reasonably long tail because we're going to use that to close up the top of the hat. So we'll cut our yarn and then just fasten off. Okay, so there is our beanie. So it's looking lovely, isn't it? So there's just a very small gap up here to close up. So we can just flip the hat inside out. Grab our yarn needle again. And then just weave in and out between the tops of all those stitches from the final round. Okay, there we go. And if we just get that little pull and just work a few stitches at the top here, just coming at it from a few different angles just to close up that gap there. Okay, so I'll weave that in a minute. Let me just flip this around so that you can see what our beanie looks like. So this is the back, so there's the seam, and not too conspicuous at all. I'm pretty happy with that. And here is the front of the hat, and I'm just so thrilled with how that has turned out. So now all you have to do is finish weaving in your ends. You can attach a little pom-pom up at the top here if you like, and your hat is ready to go. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you have enjoyed this crochet tutorial with me, and if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. I also have lots more free crochet patterns and tutorials on my website nedandbeanie.com, so be sure to check those out. Happy crocheting and take care.